Well, good morning and welcome to our Taste of Palestine Day. We hope that this day will inform you, give you some encouragement, and let you know what we learned. So, I think the first thing I want to say is to recognize that when 19 of your fellow congregants went, we did not go on a tourist trip. We went on a partnership trip with our two partners, Dar al-Kalama University in Bethlehem. Bright Stars of Bethlehem is their overarching funding source. And Augusta Victoria Hospital in Jerusalem, and their overarching funding source is the Lutheran World Federation. So it was not a tourist trip, and that's important for us to recognize. So I want to first, the folks who went with us could, just stand up as I say your name and then sit down, whatever. There were 19 of us: Sue Brauender, Joseph Crippen, who's not in the room yet, Laura Dundek, David Engen, and I have David Murphy. Greg Murphy, he just turned into a David. Brianna Grant, George and Carolyn Heider. And is Carolyn not here today?
She's not.
Oh, I'm sorry. Myself and my husband, Walt. Gene Jansen, who is not feeling well, so he's not here today. And his daughter, Andrea Severson, went with him. Jim and Judy Johnson, who are back there. There they are. Carol Peterson, there. Reed Peterson, over there. Mark and Linda Pipcorn, and Bob Wick, back there. We spent our time primarily in Bethlehem and Jerusalem, though we went other places as well. And what we thought we would do today is focus our attention today on the 4 questions we got asked most often when we returned. So that's what we're going to do, and a couple of people will speak on each of the questions, and then you'll have time to ask questions as well. But before we begin, we'd like to show you a very recently received, like this week I think, maybe even, short video from Dar al-Kalama University, which the team has not seen yet, and which is just lovely. So let's start with that, and that will let you know why these students and faculty are so both important and amazing to us.
It's like 3 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm studying culture and sustainable tourism.
My name is Laila Ramesh and I study interior design.
My name is Laura Ditil and I am academic art student.
Greetings, my name is Wasim Tahoun, major in music.
My name is Nathalie Maya, I'm from Bethlehem. I'm studying interior design at the Academy University.
My name is Renee Sholi, I'm 18 and I'm studying DEK fashion design.
Hello, my name is Shah. I'm studying tourism and culture management.
My name is Ryan. I'm studying culinary arts and this is my first year.
art as resistance has always been there. The use of art in resistance is a very deep subject that has been going for decades in history here in Palestine, and there's always forms of art in cinema, drawing, music, and songs that's a form of resistance in art.
I know a lot of aspects about design and how to create and be creative. And I think that sticks to the mind and my heart.
You should do your dream. Even if there's occupation, even if there's a lot of restrictions, you should do what you want and what you love.
To become a successful chef, because my goal is to master different cuisines and one day open my own restaurant.
I will make my family proud of me. So I want to share our story, our culture. Everything here in Bethlehem is special. We have a story, and I really love being a Palestinian. I want to share it and to share my country's name.
I want to create a story for my life, not just live.
That's it, actually. So,
Sorry, we tried.
you heard it, I bet.
Couldn't get the sound. We couldn't get the sound bar to work before, and now
Yeah, and now it's
come back with
over.
that.
It's over.
Yeah.
Yes. If you ever want to see this again, it's on the Dar al Kalima website, and I just, a number of those, at least two of those are people we actually spoke with when we were there. I think you can see how amazing they are. I'm going to do a little editorial here. At the beginning, everything looked so empty, and it did when we got there too at 9 o'clock in the morning. And we thought, are they on break? No, they can't start school that early because it often takes students 2 to 3 hours to get through the checkpoints to get there. So by the afternoon, the place was swarming, but it was empty in the beginning. So our partnership trip was arranged by Bright Stars and Shepherd's Tours. Our co-leader here was George Hyder, and our tour leader there was Sammy Curry. Sammy Curry made pretty much all of the difference to how our tour went. A pretty amazing man. So that's how I got today, how we got there. So the first question, and the most often asked question, both before we went and after we got back, had to do with safety. Linda and Bob are going to come on up, and I'm going to hand them the mics, and they're going to say a couple things about safety. You can sit if you want, but you don't have to.
That's all right, I can stand. I'll see how I do with the microphone here. Anyway, yes, all of us were asked, were you safe? And I have to say that we felt safe when we were with Sammy, because he really had the experience of travel. He knew where to take us, where not to take us. His expertise was unbelievable, and we were in the West Bank. We did not go to Gaza, that's in the news, and we continue to hear all the horrible things that are happening there. We also were in East Jerusalem too. We passed through these checkpoints that Judy mentioned, that the Palestinians endured every day of their lives. We were welcomed with open arms and just smiles like you can't believe. The students and teachers at Dar al Kalima were just delightful. And the vendors, we had many stories about them and experiences, and we had a few, the personal interactions were so amazing. Some really they were so happy to see us, that we had come. I'm so happy that you came here. Where are you from? And anyway, and Reed just shared a lovely story this morning about another engineer who filled in his father's store on the weekends who hadn't been here, but anyway. We experienced a lot of hospitality in the restaurants that we went to, and the guest houses that we stayed at. We saw fewer guns than we expected. That was a surprise. When we rode the bus and came to checkpoints, the people got on with guns and we had our passports ready, but it was never a problem under Sammy's guidance, and we were prepared. It was not a problem. We had security checkpoints at the Temple Mount and Wailing Wall. We had to go through security similar to the airport. And we knew we were being watched. So in a way, it felt like a security state, similar to what we're going through right now. And the first night that we were in Bethlehem at the guest house, it was a little unsettling in that there was a drone that began in the evening that went on for several hours. I never realized that they were noisy like that, but that was patrolling the streets. And we went on about eating our dinner, and our hosts just went on serving us. And this was the only time we had the drone, but they live with that. And that's a daily, or not daily, but a reality. Maybe I'll turn it over to Bob, and you can add anything else, but I just want to say that I felt safe in the care of Sammy. I would do this again in a heartbeat. It was not a tourist trip, but it was a trip of a lifetime. It was a pilgrimage to see these beautiful holy sites that you read about in the Bible, to see them today in this time, to walk those steps was just thrilling. And it's I just can't say enough about it. And the lovely Palestinians and their resilience and their joy, and it extended to all of us who were so blessed.
Excellent. An example I'm going to give is where we arrived at the hotel, and it was lighter then, but some of us wanted to go get water or go to a store. And very few stores like we have here. I could say probably, I was leery of going out because it was dark by myself. And then I was catching up to these other people, which were about 4 or 5. And the other people were part of our group, of course. And they went to a pharmacy or something like that, and then they turned around. But in that area, there was a man that was coming down, a young man, 40-ish. And he was coming down, and somebody in the group said, can you help us find a store, or a name of the store, I guess apparently, where this is. Of course, then we had to turn around and go all the way, like a block and a half, or maybe 2 blocks. And we went to the store, and we went into it, and there was water, wine, things like that. And when I left, he was still out there. Actually, he was telling me, you know, your group is over at this particular store. And when he was telling me this, he seemed so like to be into this group. And so when I got out of the store, he was going to help me go into where the hotel was again, because it was dark. And he said something like, I can't remember if he said United States or America or something like that. He said, are you from there? And I said, yes, we're part of this group here, and I told him a little bit about it. And then he said, where in the United States, or where in America? And I said, Minnesota. And of course he pronounced it very Scandinavian, Minnesota. And I said, yeah. But he was so kind and so generous in offering helping me and getting me to a place where I needed to go at that particular time, so I was carrying water. So I was afraid at first to go out. And from there on, it was not a fear for me. I just relaxed with that, and I felt very at home into this Palestinian area. And I would go in a heartbeat again as well. I don't know if there's any questions. There's a couple of other things too that. Yeah.
Explain to me and some of us don't know, who is this Sammy guy?
Saint Sammy.
A tour guide, or what was it?
Sammy was our guide. He was our guide that led
You hired him?
all of
Yes,
them.
it was a part-
Very, very nice fellow, very nice, very good.
Is he Palestinian?
Yes. Yes.
Palestinian
It
Christian.
was a Palestinian, but I believe she lived in Israel.
Lived in East
He
Jerusalem.
lived in Israel. He worked in being a guide. Yeah.
Okay.
Very knowledgeable.
He owned Shepherd's Tours, who
Yes.
we,
And he, oh, yeah,
He led the tour company, Shepherd's Tours, and he had the privilege of living in East Jerusalem, which made it a little bit easier for him to travel through the checkpoints. And he actually had a Danish mother, and he had studied in Chicago for, his undergrad or whatever.
and he has two children.
And he had 2 children, yeah.
One was in Paris, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, his daughter was in Copenhagen, and if she lived there long enough, then she could get the special passport too, which gave him a few more privileges. But he would, yeah.
Can you explain to me and some others too, why it takes 2 or 3 hours to go through checkpoints?
That's the
Then
good
they find a
question.
way to work?
That's the good question. They just close them to be mean. Yeah.
harassment.
Harassment.
You have to find alternative ways to get to where you want to be. If they close a checkpoint, well, now I have to back up and find another way to get there. And they can close the checkpoints at any time for any reason,
Do they feel like it?
when they feel like it.
What was really interesting, Sammy's wife was a school teacher, was that correct?
Yeah.
Oh, no, she was a therapist.
She was a therapist of some
Yeah.
kind. Before all of the wall went up, it would only take her a few minutes to get to work. Once the wall went up and all these checkpoints were installed, it took her several hours to get to her job. So
And depending on the day.
Depending on the day, right, yeah, it was very, 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 kind of, who knows why they're gonna do whatever they're gonna do.
It can take anywhere from 1 hour to 7 hours.
7 hours, right.
Depending on how the checkpoints are opened or closed.
The checkpoints are like the arms you see on the freeways for snow.
Right.
So they can open and close them automatically.
Oh, sure.
And so you never know if it's gonna open or close. There is an app that that Sammy had, that could show which checkpoints were opened and closed at that moment.
Okay.
But
that could close.
But that could change.
You never know.
1,500.
Yeah, they're like 1,200
1200.
in the Bethlehem state, 1,200 checkpoints. Yeah. And in fact, one day, the day we were at Dar al-Kalama, our bus couldn't come to get us because it got stuck at a checkpoint. And so Sammy had to call a different bus company to come and get us because it couldn't get into Bethlehem.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Sammy's family owns Shepherd's Tours, which Bright Stars usually uses, and which, if anybody else wants to go, we would highly recommend. So it's a tour group, a tour company,
Okay.
and Sammy's company now leads tours to Europe, to Christian sites in Europe and elsewhere as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mark.
Just to throw in one short thing on Sammy, several weeks ago, we got a message from him, because we're all in a WhatsApp group. We got a message from him wondering if we were okay here in Minneapolis.
That's nice.
Yes, yes. When we asked what we could do, one of the things he said was stay in contact with us. And so he has let us know that they are praying for us. Yes.
Just one point on the gates. They have the 1,200 in this. They have 1,200 gates in this relatively small area of the West Bank. They can close them down individually. Sammy was saying somebody somewhere in a control box can hit one button, close them all, and virtually shut down any movement within the West Bank.
George?
Not related strictly to safety, but to how we were received. We were repeatedly told that we were the first group who had been in Bethlehem, basically any place but Jerusalem. we were the first group to be there in quite some time. Since before the war, since before COVID, before that. And so at one level, it was the merchants saying, finally, because Bethlehem is deeply, deeply dependent upon tourist income. At another level, it was simply, wow, we're glad you're here. We're glad you recognize that we are people with needs too.
Yeah, just to add to that, one of the vendors I talked to said post-COVID, they got almost back to normal. And then the war, I mean, it was just like, the hopes were up, we're opening up, everything's going back, tourists are coming again, and then it just all shut down again.
In the two guest houses we stayed at in Bethlehem and in Nazareth, we were the only guests in the whole establishment.
I was going to say the bus driver too.
Oh, the bus driver was very knowledgeable. Yeah. Okay. Question 2. Question 2 is, what did you learn that you didn't know before you went? And Laura and Greg are going to give a shot at that. What did you learn that you didn't know before? Let me go first.
I really am.
Okay.
Well, in our group, of course, we talked a lot about how, you know, the idea or the image that we get often from the media is that all Palestinians are terrorists and so on. And obviously, I mean, I knew that wasn't true. But to meet and speak with people, people who are just trying to live their lives, just trying to get to work, trying to earn enough money to support their families, trying to go to school, trying to find health care, which is very challenging for them. Trying to, and I don't know if anybody's going to talk about Augusta Victoria Hospital. We did last week a little bit, but just for Palestinians to get to the hospital is a challenge, and so on. So that was not new to me, but it certainly was something that was reinforced repeatedly. And also somebody pointed out, you know, I mean, I think probably the war in Gaza has raised up a new crop of terrorists, and which is unfortunate, obviously. I think one of the things that I came away with was, a lot of you know, or some of you know at least, that I'm a student of Native American history, indigenous history here in Minnesota, specifically here in Minnesota, and the language used around what is happening in Palestine right now is so similar to the language that was used, or the language that is now used to talk about what happened to Native Americans. The fear of them, and I am not going to deny that there are Palestinians who are terrorists, that Israel, the government of Israel and the Israeli people do feel afraid. I understand that. But it's not unlike, you know, the idea that we had to get Native American people out of the state in order for us to feel safe, or we had to somehow eliminate them in order to feel safe. That's sort of some of the language that you hear over there as well. That they have to be moved away. They have, you know, and so we take their land and we, you know, put them into increasingly isolated little spots, so that they can't harm us anymore. That's just exactly what the conversation that was happening in the 1850s, 1840s, 1850s, 1860s here in Minnesota. And I was very struck by that. We have to, you know, they're different from us. They're not civilized. They're less than. And I was made very much aware of that over there. I learned that, well, I didn't learn, but I was reinforced in my belief that I don't like lamb.
Not even boiled lamb?
Not even boiled lamb, no, thank you. Yeah. But I do like Limonana. Limonana, I think, is the name. You'll have some, if you come to Taste of Today, Bob has graciously, pulverized 4,000 limes probably, and a whole garden full of mint. And I also learned that there is no level ground in Palestine. It is either all up or all down. And I was stunned by the landscape. I don't know why I had this idea, I guess desert, that it's flat. It was not flat, at least not in many of the parts where we were. And it was, and I just kept having this image of Jesus just, I'm sure he spent at least, 7/8 of his 3 years in ministry going up and down hills. Because it was amazing. When we were going to Jericho, I looked out the window and I thought, they walked this way? How did they do that?
His calves were.
Maybe
Don't
it's
say enough about Jesus.
maybe in some of the gospels that didn't make it into the canon, they talk about Jesus' calves. So anyway, that was, those were just some of my takeaways. So.
I mean, I could talk a long time about things I didn't know before we went, but I will mention, I think one of the main things we took away from it, I found it really interesting that, so we were talking about Sammy he's a Christian, and you'd think there's a lot of Christians in Palestine. There really aren't, and there's certainly not a lot of Lutherans. And one of the things they were very clear is like, this is not, the conflicts there, it's not a religious conflict, it's political. And so I think that's another impression I tended to get here was like, it's Muslims versus Jewish people and things like that. And there's an aspect to that, but then there's so many. I kept getting in trouble for saying it's really complicated. And it's like, yeah, but that's not quite enough to say. But the other thing I'll mention is just I think seeing it was more helpful to understand these settlements that are all over. And so in the West Bank, you kind of think of a two-state idea, but that part of their state they kept kind of talking about Swiss cheese, where it was like there's just little dots all over the West Bank that are Israeli settlements, and there's special roads set up to them, there's special plumbing and electricity, and there's all this whole infrastructure kind of just one little bit at a time, creeping more and more in there to the point that it's not a very hidden agenda that they want to control a lot of that area to the point where a two-state solution wouldn't even be viable if they all agreed to it. So there's definitely, still a lot to learn for me about like what anybody there is really hoping for, and I think that's the next question. But I think we all went over there thinking like, well, how are they going to work this out? And we don't really know yet, but there are people there working on that and trying for that. So. There are an awful lot of people, like she was saying, who just want to live a peaceful life, and they're not trying to be terrorists. They're not trying to be in war. They just want to be able to have a job and go to school. So.
Yeah, I also thought just went flying right out of my brain.
Speaking of Swiss cheese.
Yeah.
I knew this, but I really saw it in real life when I was there, was the use of natural resources as a tool to oppress, and that is, I'm talking about water. We were at the Banksy Museum in Bethlehem, and there was a picture of, was it the Banksy Museum? There was a water pipe showing, here's what a water pipe looks like in Jerusalem. So big. Here's what it looks like in Bethlehem. Okay, water pressure doesn't exist in the West Bank. We learned that, and also the Israelis can also control the water access at any time in the West Bank. Also, for some Palestinians, they've tried to work around this and they build cisterns on top of their homes, but often it wouldn't be unusual for Israeli soldiers to come along and shoot bullets into those cisterns. So that's the kind of thing we really
Jim.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to piggyback on Greg. One of the things I learned was in the West Bank, the interfaith thing is a real thing. Muslims, Christians, Jews, they're all, and one of the interesting things Sammy said to me, two things. Sammy said, there's a tolerance for moderate Islamic practices in the West Bank. So he said Muslims in the West Bank can be hijab, be completely covered, or not. So we saw that in Darul Kalama.
There's a place up in there.
We weren't the only Christian group there. There was another group that was coming to proselytize the Muslims. And one of the things Sammy told me, I just thought it was great. I just want to share it. My favorite story was these Christians will come and they'll ask him, so when did you convert? And he said, on the day of Pentecost. When did you? We've been here for a while. So I just thought, wow, who gets to say that? We became Christians on Pentecost, and we've been here ever since. Which is a sad thing because they're getting fewer and fewer. But it's also a beautiful thing that there have been Christians there since Jesus. So anyway.
Yeah, I had a
just
phone
to piggyback on
conversation.
Greg.
I had a phone conversation with our bishop, Bishop Jen Nagel, on Wednesday, I guess, and she just got back. There is a new, I don't know what they call him, presiding bishop, new of Jordan and the Holy Land, and he was just. I was going to say indoctrinated. No, installed. Thank you. My language therapist here. So there's a good contingent of Christians over there, and we met the former presiding bishop. He married Sammy and his wife, and so on. But something that the whole business of water and the checkpoints and the way the taxes are collected and all, it felt like for the Palestinian people, death by 1,000 cuts. Just little in.
They're trying to get to the lead.
Yeah, it's the little and big inconveniences that just, I was just thinking how it would wear you down over time to do that. So, and one of the most special moments for me was Sammy, the couple of times when he actually read a little devotional in some of these places that we went, that were, somehow that just really moved me, in a cave on the hills of Bethlehem where the shepherds had hung out, and so on. So. Other questions or?
What's the vegetation like there? Is it real arid?
Is there any? It's a rock pile.
Yeah.
That's what I came back with, is that
Olive trees.
olive trees, and lots and lots and lots of rocks, and lots of up and down.
And they build their homes out of that.
Yes, the buildings are all made out of those rocks.
Here we saw that irrigation system dating back.
The irrigation system, there's a picture of downstairs.
Growing things.
Yes,
right.
They grow things with the irrigation system. There's a picture of that on the wall downstairs when you go down.
Okay.
Yeah. And the olive trees, which I didn't know, one of the things I didn't know is that they live forever, and the only way to kill an olive tree is to pull it up by its roots. So what the settlers are doing is, in fact, pulling up the olive trees in people's olive groves. The thing that I learned that I didn't know, when I think settlements, I think tents and little huts or whatever. No. The Israeli settlements are large, modern apartment buildings on the hills. The largest is 60,000 people. It's a gated community with all of the modern conveniences of a gated community. And that was shocking to me. As opposed to the refugee camps, which is where you go when a settler takes your home. The refugee camps were begun out of boxcars, and they're kind of stacked on each other. And downstairs, Jim will be running a wonderful film montage. He was our professional photographer, and he'll be running the pictures. And this week in the Olive Branch, We will have a link to Jim's pictures so that you can see even more about our trip. Any other questions about that? Yes?
When you were talking about the number of Christians
Yes.
in Palestine,
Yes.
and my memory from times I've been there and heard talks is that in 1947-48, about 20% of the population of Palestine was Christian, and maybe George and Tom know that number better than I.
Yes, I think that's
But
right.
it's a fifth to a quarter of the population was Christian, and now it's dwindled
2 to 4%.
considerably.
Yes.
And many of the Christians have emigrated because the situation is so terrible there for them. So that's something that the formation of Israel has caused to happen, which is the disbursement of Christians, Christians leaving the Holy Land.
Yes.
One of the things I was struck by when we met with I wasn't with this group, so thank you for bringing all of this to our attention. But I have traveled there actually 5 times with students from Wartburg Seminary. And I was always struck by when we met with Christian leaders, they would say, my goal isn't to make you pro-Palestinian, and I hope you aren't pro-Israeli. I hope you are pro-justice and peace. And I think we can admire the work of the Christian population in general to promote those things. And there's a very fine book, I can't remember the name or the author, he was a journalist, but I'd be happy to look it up if people are interested. But he surveys the whole landscape of things in the Middle East, and especially in Israel and Palestine, and really points out that the Christian population is a kind of in-between, and that they have been working for exactly those things, for peace and justice on both sides. And on the Israeli side, there are Christians there, and on the Palestinian side. And I think that's a profound witness that we need to support. And so I was also surprised how many Lutherans are there, and how many Lutheran institutions on the West Bank.
Yes, yes, that is true. Okay, question 3 is, we have written in the Olive Branch, a number of people who've done the writing in the Olive Branch have written about Palestinian hopefulness. And one of the other questions we got, I'm going to grab your foot there, is explain Palestinian hopefulness and how you hear that. You saw some of that in the short video with the students, but David and Bob are going to say something about hopefulness. Oh, or not. Okay, David can talk for both of you.
Yeah. For me, the experience was remarkable. I mean, everybody says that. They had a remarkable time. But the thing that stuck in my mind the most was when we were at Dar al-Khalima and visiting with the students there. Not to just dismiss going to the holy sites, they were remarkable. Reading scripture, and there it was. There, over the Sea of Galilee and what have you. But to me, what was most remarkable is the fact that despite all of this oppression that the Palestinians have experienced, was the hopefulness in these young people, almost to a one. I say almost because when we were meeting with these students and kind of getting their stories about what kept them going, one guy said, "It's not for me." He said, "I don't belong here. I went out." Of course, when you get his backstory, the settlement, thank you, that refugee camp that he was in was pretty much decimated. And so there was nothing left for him to go home to, frankly. But the other students there were studying, as you saw in the video, fashion design. They were studying, art of various kinds, that type of thing. And they had such hopefulness. They said, it's our generation that is going to bring about change. It's our generation that's going to cause for things to happen here. And for something to, and I thought, given everything, this is just remarkable. That the human resiliency that existed there. Sue brought up about water supply, electricity, maybe or maybe not.
the various things that they have to go through. How is it that they are able to deal with that on a daily basis, wake up and go on? What is really another kind of story about that is when folks are forced out of their homes, when a settlement goes in, or even back in 1948 when the state was created, the homes had keys, like any of us have a key. And they still hang on to those keys that were first given to them when they left their homes. And so those keys are like a precious amulet, if you will, just to simply indicate we will go home someday. Hopefully we'll go home. In fact, at one of the refugee camps we visited, the entrance into it has above it an enormous key. And I thought that was so striking to see that. But again, I came away, I was a little surprised. I thought, oh, it'll be great to go, see the Church of the Nativity and all that kind of thing, but I left with a whole different feeling about what really mattered as I was there. Any questions? Oh,
I could say one thing. I didn't know I was supposed to be here. The one thing that we were at the university.
Please hold up the mic.
Oh yes, of course. And there were 4 or 5 young women there, and they were actually going down the staircase. And I said to one of them, I said, may I take a photo of you? And they didn't understand that. And 3 of them, or 2 of them rather, said, no, we don't want any photos. Eventually, another person came out and spoke to them and said that, come and sit and do what, and so they did, and they were sitting there and very polite. And I took a photo, and I said, you are the future here. You are going to go and build from here. So then I took the second photo with a smile on their face and thumbs up like this. I have it. And I thought that was so appropriate and so wonderful to see that. And that's all I can say.
One of the things they said was, our existence is resistance. That was kind of their tagline. Laura?
Well, no, I just was thinking the amazing creativity that they have when one thing gets squashed, they come up with something else. And an example would be the Palestinian flag, which is green, black, and red.
Red, green, and black.
Red,
green, and black.
Thank you.
And white.
Laura.
And white.
And, right there on Rachel's lapel. And when that was, in places where that was oppressed or, told that they couldn't use it, they turned to the watermelon. A slice of watermelon has green, black, and red in it. Green rind, red fruit, black seeds. And the watermelon became a symbol for them. And they could display watermelons, there's pictures of watermelons. So to me, that's part of the hopefulness that they, if you don't have hope, why bother? Why bother to do it? And so I thought that was a great example of sustainability.
So you will see some watermelon decorations downstairs. Brett?
Did you have a discussion about 2-state solution or 1-state solution?
Understand that we spent our time with Palestinian Christians. That was who we spent our time with. What Sammy said in regard to the 1- and 2-state solution was very telling to me. He had been hopeful about a 2-state solution. He really had. But he said in front of the Knesset, when we were there was a bill to put a 3rd settlement. There's a settlement on one side of the West Bank, a big settlement on the other side of the West Bank. And there was a bill in the Knesset to put one in the middle. He says if that happens, it will divide the West Bank, and then there won't be the possibility of a 2-state solution. That passed since we got home, and there is some resistance to trying to build that settlement. but the Knesset has passed, land is being taken to build that settlement in the middle of the crossway. So, not as hopeful anymore. He said, and I tend to agree with him, that in the end it's going to have to be everybody belongs to this democracy. Israel touts loudly, anytime you ask, that they're the only democracy in the Middle East. And that's just not true. They're an apartheid democracy. And if they could be a democracy, that would be truly amazing.
Maybe I'll just mention, I mean, one of the things I also learned there was, so a lot of the students, for example, I mean, it's been 18 years since they had any type of election for the Palestinian Authority. So, I mean, they've lived their whole life. And I think the leader is like 90 or 89, and nobody seemed to really know what was next for that or what was coming there. And that was, again, kind of, when we talk about hope, but that was the impression I got from Sammy, is like they're talking like 2 generations from now hope. It's not so much, a year from now. It's like they're thinking very long term. So.
And this is certainly my own opinion, but I came away thinking part of the problem is the lack of Palestinian leadership.
Yeah.
Yes.
My understanding is that a man who is very, very promising as the next generation of leadership, or maybe even 2 generations down, has been jailed in Israel. The Israelis have jailed him for many years. So that's part of the strategy, I guess, is, I'm going to use that word, but I'm obviously making assumptions in using that word, is that they can say then Palestinians don't have leaders, but why don't they have leaders?
Right.
Well, they're in jail in Israel, the Israelis arrest them. So I just think it gets to be a catch-22.
Right.
And it gets to be a situation in which hope is an amazing miracle, really.
I know. Our final question of the 4 questions was, what can we do? What can and should we do about this whole situation? And Reed and Mark are going to take that one.
The unfortunate answer is very little that we can do, but we can do something. As Tom said, the goal is justice, not necessarily we support this side or this side. There are a lot of moderate Israelis. There are a lot of moderate Palestinians. I would put everyone we talk to in that category. But there are also the Zionists in Israel who are currently in the government. And there's also Hamas. So we need to support justice. Meanwhile, the things that we can do are probably try to influence Israel politically in order to calm the situation. And I talked to the director of Augusta Victoria Hospital. The problem they have is they have become the go-to place for cancer treatments, and about the only place that the Palestinians can go to for that. And right now, they have no patients. And they have no patients because all of their, well, I shouldn't say that, they have patients, they just can't get to the hospital because Israel won't let them. So that would be one example of if we can get our Congress to pressure Israel just to open up that pathway, that would be a start. Anything else we can do to influence our legislatures to pressure Israel to stop building settlements, to stop killing people in Gaza. Unfortunately, the 20 point, whatever the program is that we now have in place in Gaza is not going to address that problem at all. That program is basically, let's take all the Palestinians, we'll put them into concentration camps while we have outside investors that will rebuild Gaza into a new city. Well, it's not a new city for the Palestinians. Anyway, contacting our senators is probably the only active political thing we can do. The important thing probably is to stay informed. There are various websites, and even in the news, keep tabs on what's happening over there, so that you at least understand where pressure might be applied, how the government, the U.S. government, is interacting with it. You can give money to various organizations, Bright Stars of Bethlehem. There are a bunch of others that I get email for that I haven't vetted, so I don't know precisely what they do. I would be a little careful about that. If you can travel there, I would certainly encourage you to do so, just for their psychological support, for your own psychology, and your own understanding of the situation. Traveling there would be the best thing. And finally, pray for them. And you have other ideas.
Well, can I tag on to something Mark said quick? Just last year, our Synod voted, one of the things you can do when you're contacting legislators, and given the state of our current government, I'm not terribly hopeful it will have any traction. But our Synod voted that our bishop, and that we would call for U.S. aid to be held back to Israel until Israel agrees to international humanitarian rights standards. And again, right now we're just pouring all kinds of money into their military, and if we could say, well, we can support you, we can give you aid, but it's not going to happen until you agree to do certain things. And again, is that going to, it's probably not going to be heard in Washington, but if enough of us are saying that, and calling our people and saying, we can't just have an open checkbook here, we got to put some international requirements on it that we've all agreed upon apparently, although again, our government isn't following them either, so. Yeah, anyway, that's something you could say when you call people.
Well, let me follow up on that. One of the things that I think all of us experienced was when we got over there, we realized we're not hearing the whole story here. In fact, it's really narrowed down. So one of the things we all can do is expand our news. BBC, Al Jazeera, Palestinian Chronicle, all kinds of different viewpoints. It's going to take effort because we don't get it here. So I would encourage you to do that. Speaking to what Joseph just said, and Greg just sent out, you can Google this, ELCA Advocacy Action Alert. And it's sort of a direct communication, highly recommended. They have alerts that come out, and you'll see on the drop-down menu that it has blogs too. Highly encourage you to do that. That's one way you can share the story of what we're telling you, and that's why I think why you're here, hopefully. Just running out of time here. A couple quick terms maybe that we don't have time to talk about a lot is get to know the word Zionism, colonial settlerism. Know what that is, and like I forget, Judy said, we're talking about a political discussion here. Zionism is a political party, different from Judaism. Probably all of us have a lot of faithful Jewish friends, and yeah, so just to know the difference from that. Oh, and the other thing you can do if you want to buy something. I have a list here, and I'm sure other people do. If you want to buy something, olive wood carvings are great. They have websites, you can order it. They ship just like we do around here. So support them financially, the craftspeople over there in Palestine, West Bank, by buying some things. Yeah, Jim was first.
I have to give everyone my apologies for carrying this thing around the last couple of weeks. I know it's awkward, but this has everything to do with us telling the story. We're putting together an online pictorial album of our trip that you will be able to share with all your friends. It's not limited. It's, forward it to anybody that you want to kind of share the story, see the photos, learn of our trip, and so on and so forth. And that small way of telling our story may affect others, other churches, other people in the Twin Cities area that might want to go and take a similar trip. So thank you for your patience with this being in your face for the last couple of weeks.
And I would just add, our group brought a lot of books over that were requested by the Darul Kalima Library. We should probably make this available in an olive branch, but Sammy has agreed that we can ship the books to him and he can make sure. So if you felt like you wanted to look at the list of books that they could use for this, any books we send saves them money for doing other things. So there are ways, we probably should get that out there on a thing.
Yes.
But Sammy said if you want to do this when you get back home, just send it to me through Shepherd's Tours and he'll make sure it gets to the university. So that's another thing.
Because otherwise it doesn't get to the university.
Right, otherwise it doesn't go anywhere.
Yes,
Right.
yes. Who wanted to say something?
Well, just, I forget who, right at the beginning, they talked about, or mentioned that I had a nice encounter. The very last night we were in Bethlehem, I needed to buy some things to bring home, little bowls that were maxed out on our suitcase. So run across this, coming down this narrow street, a nice gentleman said, "Are you from Mount Olive?" I go, "Well, yeah, actually, I am." And he says, "Come on in." We had a nice conversation, perfect English, bought all the kind of stuff. And I said, asked him his name, Aman. He said, and I said, "Aman, you great English." He says, "Yeah, I spent a number of years at Northwestern University. I'm an electrical engineer. I worked with my dad, on weekends here in the shop, and then my other job is an electrical engineer." And I said, "We're here," I termed it, I think it's a ministry of presence. We were here just to be with them, to gather their stories so we can share their stories, well, for us, and then to you. At the end of that, and I told him that, and we're standing about this far away, and I says, "I gotta go." He takes 2 big steps and gives me a big bear hug. And that was it.
When we got back, I emailed Sammy and said, "What can we do?" And he said 2 things. Keep contact with us. Don't lose contact with us. And so a number of us continued to email Sammy. And then the second thing he said was, come. It's the perfect time to go. We didn't have to stand in line. Carol Peterson talked about how 3 years ago when she went, she had to stand in line for 3 hours, and we got to walk right in. And George, who has gone to choir, said he'd be perfectly willing to lead another tour. So if people can go, going is safe and an amazing thing, and they need people. So downstairs we will be having people from the tour sitting at each of the tables, and so you can ask questions downstairs at lunch. I want to thank everybody who tried the recipes. I got a couple phone calls last night about, is this working right? And we'll say a few more things downstairs. But thank you, and let us know if you have further questions. We appreciated our trip. We appreciated Mount Olive's connection and support. And we hope to continue doing partnership trips with our other global ministry partners. Thank you.